journey together. You blink the sleep from your eyes and stretch your arms as you trudge across the damp marble floors of the kitchen yard. Someone's already spilled a sack of cumin seeds. Another man is yelling about a missing goat's head, which you sincerely hope isn't part of the breakfast menu. Copper pots clang in rhythm, like an accidental orchestra. It's only the 3rd hour before sunrise, and you're already sweating. Your supervisor, known only as Uncle 17 Titles, is gliding past an open flame. With the grace of a falcon in a sari, he has 17 honorifics, none of which you can pronounce, and all of which he insists you mumble at the start of each sentence. He catches your gaze and points you toward the spice-crushing corner with a single eyebrow twitch. Go, he says. The mango masala must breathe before the sun does. You nod solemnly and hustle toward your stational, low wooden bench next to a teenage boy, half asleep in a pile of coriander. Today's task is deceptively simple. Mix the mango masala, not too spicy, not too sweet. Don't even think about sneezing into it, or your nose might be fed to the falcons. This blend is going into the Emperor's ambrosial mango slurry, a breakfast dish so sacred it gets its own miniature gong. You start grinding the mix: roasted cumin, dried mint, black salt, powdered ginger, and just a hint of dried mango peel. It's a process that requires slow, deliberate pressure, a kind of culinary meditation. If meditation smelled like pepper and responsibility, the kitchen stretches out before you in layers. In one corner, large stone cauldrons are bubbling with congee made from parched barley. Nearby, a team of older cooksmen, with forearms like temple pillars, stir enormous vats of saffron milk with paddles the size of boat oars to your left. A more delicate operation is underway. Women in fine linen headscarves are steaming millet cakes in banana leaf wrappings, each one tied with a thread of turmeric-dyed twine. The cakes will be served with a pat of goat cheese and a single candied almond, no more, no less. Historians still argue whether the Mughal kitchen ever truly followed fixed recipes, or if every dish was a one-time improvisation based on who was in the room and how moody the emperor felt that morning. You wonder about that as a spoonful of your mango masala is whisked away for tasting. A tester, a man who has worn the same pale blue robe for 15 years, smells it, stirs it with his pinky, and gives a thumbs up, so casual, it might have just saved your life. There are over 400 people working in this kitchen. Some specialize in breads, others are assigned to nothing but fruit arrangements. A few unlucky souls are strictly tasked with removing any lizards that fall into the lentil pots. You, though you've got a future. Maybe even a future with mangoes. One of the big thrills, of course, is simply being in the orbit of Emperor Jahangir himself. You won't see him yet, he's still asleep, presumably surrounded by peacock feather fans and servants named things like Prince of the Night Slippers. But his influence radiates through every corner of this kitchen like heat from the tandoor. Everyone knows his morning mood is fragile. One overcooked dumpling or bland chutney could set off a day of melancholy poetry and impromptu dismissals. The cook who once served him cold tamarind rice, rumor has it he now sweeps camel yards in Kabul. You catch a glimpse of the taster again. This time he's smelling a stack of cardamom pancakes, layered with clove syrup and edible rose petals. His eyes close, his chin tilts, and he sighs. A good sign. Nearby, a fruit vendor from Kashmir is unloading crates of peaches, grapes, pomegranates, and of course, the first mangoes of the season. He is weeping softly with pride. It's a holy moment. Mangoes in Mughal India aren't just food. They're feeling, they're diplomacy, they're subtle acidic shade. If you offer someone a lesser mango, you might as well slap them with a sandal. And right now, in this warm, basil-scented kitchen, you're about to find out why. As the first rays of light begin to sneak through the lattice windows, the mangoes are placed gently into carved marble bowls. Not too cold, not too ripe. Hand-picked, hand-wiped, hand-carried by men who don't make eye contact with them. You step back to admire your masala, now folded into a gently simmering puree. It's golden, fragrant, and hopefully worthy. Suddenly, a bell chimes 3 times. That's the signal. The emperor is awake. You barely slept last night. Not from discomfort, though the woven mat you've claimed in the outer spice corridor is unforgiving as dry stone. No, it was the nerves. You're not just some errand boy anymore today, Marks. Your formal initiation into the mango-stirring post. A minor role, yes, but one guarded with the sort of reverence most courts reserve for astrologers and elephant trainers. You wake before the first rooster in Agra has even considered stretching its neck. The hallway is already humming. Someone's sharpening cleavers to a rhythm that could pass for music if you weren't so nauseous with anticipation. You dress with trembling hands. Not in anything fancy, of course. Just your usual cotton wrap and the green-threaded sash that denotes authorized touch handler of mango flesh. Only a dozen people in the entire Agra fort hold that title. You've been given it temporarily as a test. A kind of edible probation. One sticky mistake, and you'll be exiled to the sour pickle station, which smells like old socks and vinegar revenge. You pass the water carriers at the main gate. Nod to the barefoot girl who scrapes ash from yesterday's stoves, and quietly step into your designated alcove. It's hotter than you'd like, full of clanking copper pots and the thick perfume of last night's cardamom residue. But the mango tub is waiting, glistening under a high window that filters in faint peach-colored dawnlight. It looks divine, like something you'd want to nap in, or worship. Maybe both. There are rules, of course. First rule, you may never, under any circumstance, refer to a mango as just a fruit. Second rule, the stir must be counterclockwise. The emperor is fasting for lunar reasons, in which case you must pause every 7 turns and whisper a blessing in Persian. Third rule, no loud exhalations. Mangoes, apparently, absorb emotion. If you're in a bad mood, it could ruin the batch. You take a deep breath and begin. The mixture is still warm from the prep team's earlier simmering. You're not stirring whole fruit. Here, this is a ceremonial puree, thickened with slow-cooked jaggery and steeped overnight in roast saffron milk. You move slowly, wrist pivoting like a sleepy windmill. The spoon's made of sandalwood, polished smooth over decades. It smells faintly of temple floors and someone's old perfume. A good omen. From the far side of the kitchen, Uncle 17 Titles approaches, robes swishing like curtain tassels. No one knows his real name, but his official titles take nearly a full minute to recite. Custodian of the imperial fruit, overlord of sweetness calibration, chancellor of breakfast textures, and so on. He watches you from under his beetle-thick eyebrows, then adjusts the long chain around his neck that holds the sacred tasting spoon. You've never seen him smile. You're not sure he's structurally capable. Your stir, he murmurs, voice smooth as tamarind, is sluggish. You resist the urge to flinch. Shall I? Wrist higher, elbow still. You stir like a jealous widow. Not ideal feedback, but at least he hasn't dismissed you yet. As he walks away to berate someone for folding the fig leaves with an uneven crease, you turn your attention to the mangoes themselves. Not the pureno, the whole fruit, laid out nearby on velvet trays like royal jewels. There are about 8 varieties here today, each with its own little handwritten label in Persian calligraphy. You recognize a few from your study scrolls. Alfonso, Desheri, Langra, and a rare one with a curling stem called Husni Hind, Beauty of India. It's said that one bite of it could make an old man forget he's dying. Or at least forget his debts. You're tempted to reach for one, to feel its weight in your hand, but no. That is not your station. Your job is to stir, to meditate, to respect the sacred chemistry of warmth and sweetness. Still, you sneak a glance at the fruit handler's older boys, with tighter turbans and superior smugness, who pluck the mangoes from trays and gently lower them into bowls of chilled rosewater. 1 mango, 1 bowl. Each fruit is individually perfumed before peeling. You could weep, suddenly. From the far corridor, a commotion rises. Pots clatter. A rooster squawks indignantly. You freeze mid-stir. Has someone dropped a mango? No, worse. It's the royal clockmaster, running late. He bursts into the room with both shoes in his hands, beard still wet from washing, and shrieks, "Sun's up." Bellstrike was 3 blinks behind. Panic. Everyone in the room snaps into action. because when the sun touches the second ring of Agrafort's outer tower, the emperor will open his eyes and his stomach will open with them. The breakfast must be served within 25 minutes. It's not a suggestion, it's a law. And here you are, elbow deep in imperial fruit sauce. The pressure sharpens your focus. You adjust your stir, keep the surface smooth, let the fragrance build. The mixture thickens slightly, now closer to the consistency of a lullaby. You add a final dash of powdered fennel, and flick the ladle with a flourish you've practiced in secret, hoping someone important notices. Uncle 17 titles glides back, this time with a sacred spoon. He lowers it ceremoniously, eyes closed as if baptizing a royal heir. Then he tastes silence. You stop breathing. Finally, he exhales. Acceptable. You do not celebrate. You simply nod once, and begin cleaning the ladle. As the puree is whisked away toward the golden breakfast trays, you feel something strange. ... Pride. You've contributed. Tomorrow, the emperor may discuss this mango flavor while gazing across the Yamuna. Perhaps he will compare its softness to moonlight, or its aftertaste to the voice of an old lover. And no one will know your name. But they'll taste your stir. Historians still argue whether the mango was truly Jahangir's favorite fruit, or whether he simply exaggerated his fondness for poetic effect. There are letters in which he describes mangoes as a source of companionship, which, to be fair, sounds a bit suspicious. But today, in this kitchen, there is no debate. Mango is king, and you, humble stirrer, have just kissed his ring. The sun has risen, and with it, the scent of saffron has taken command of the kitchen air like a gentle tyrant cloaked in gold. You're still sweating from the mango stirring, but now you've been pulled to assist with thali assembly and honor. Sort of, though it mostly involves balancing trays, while avoiding being yelled at by men with opinions about rice grains. The thalus brass and polished with tamarind paste until they shine like polished moons are lined up across the marble counter in ranks so perfect they might have been trained in the imperial army. Your job is to place exactly 2 millet cakes on each thali, not 1, not 3, and absolutely not broken, and ensure each cake is steamed to the consistency of a soft sigh. The cakes themselves are mild in flavor, meant as a carrier for stronger elements, like goat cheese wrapped in fig leaves, which sit nearby on a cooling shelf, whispering out hints of earth and sun. You lift one carefully. It's cool to the touch, the leaf slightly dewy. Inside is a soft cheese, hand-pressed at dawn by a hunchbacked man who allegedly once served Akbar himself, though historians still argue whether he simply adopted that myth to secure better kitchen placement. Near the well, you place the cheese on the millet cakes and move to the next item. Saffron rice, fluffed like it's been kissed awake by angels. Each spoonful is measured not by weight, but by Uncle 17 titles. Says you must hear the rice settle into the dish with a satisfied sigh, or start over. You try to hear it. You think you hear it. You hope he doesn't notice that you're only pretending. The saffron, bright as sunlight, has been steeped since midnight in buffalo milk and crushed rose hips. A method learned from a Persian courtier who claimed it helped his joints and his poetry. You ladle it gently onto the plate, the grains rolling slowly into formation. A kitchen bard hums softly nearby, some ancient tune about a chicken who married a courtesan, but no one tells him to stop. Rhythm, even silly rhythm, steadies the hand. Around you, other boys are working feverishly to assemble trays for courtiers ranked from trusted mustache holders to knight of the fifth bath. The hierarchy is absurdly specific. A poet gets 5 almonds on his tray. A naval officer, only 2, but his goat cheese is stuffed with apricots. One eunuch receives a whole pomegranate, pre-cracked, for easy access. You're told not to ask questions. You don't. From the corner of your eye, you see the saffron man arrive barefoot, skin dusted with turmeric, hands like dried riverbeds. He carries with him a tiny vial containing a more concentrated saffron elixir meant only for the emperor's own rice. It glows faintly in the morning light, like sunlight made drinkable. He doesn't speak. He simply nods. Toward you pours one, drop onto a wooden spoon, and leaves without a sound. You have never felt so trusted in your life. You take the spoon, walk carefully toward the imperial tray, and drizzle the drop over the rice mound, as if anointing a sacred tomb. There's a pause in your breath as it soaks in, staining the white rice, a deeper marigold. No applause, just the scent. Rich, quiet, triumphant. Elsewhere, in the kitchen, two young girls are grinding almond paste for the cardamom butter, which will be dabbed onto bread and whispered about in poems. One of them stares at you, then down at her bowl, then giggles. You pretend not to notice, lest you spill your prestige all over the floor. Uncle's 17 titles appears again. He lifts a tray, sniffs, frowns, adjusts a fig leaf, and walks away. This, you learn, is high praise. The goat cheese begins to soften now, the fig leaves trapping just enough warmth to coax it into creaminess. You imagine the emperor biting into it with his front teeth, pausing mid-thought about taxes or parrots, then nodding slightly and thinking, yes, this is a good morning. The moment is pierced by a sudden crash. Someone's dropped a ghee bowl. A silence follows. No one dares to speak. Then, a roar from the next room, who gave the ghee to a boy with wet hands. You continue assembling thalus. You focus. The work is precise, repetitive, almost soothing, like breathing with purpose. One millet cake, one fig leaf cheese, one mound of saffron rice, one dab of cardamom butter, and repeat. It's a slow ballet performed for an audience you'll never meet. And yet, it matters. It all matters. You pass by a man whose job is to polish the thalus with silk cloth and mutter blessings into each reflection. He claims it gives the rice better texture. No one's tested this. No one dares. You glance again at the imperial tray and wonder who invented this whole system. Was there a first breakfast? A founding meal that set all these gears in motion? Historians still debate which emperor made breakfast sacred. In the Mughal court some say Humayun. Others Babur, though Babur reportedly preferred dried deer meat and melon skins. You can't imagine melon skin feeling sacred. Not like this. The trays are nearly complete. You help load them onto carved wooden carts, each pulled by two barefoot porters, and guided by a eunuch carrying a bell. The bell chimes once for every rank passed. Your tray goes with the mid-tier nobles still high enough to warrant whisper-wrapped goat cheese. As it vanishes down the hallway, your stomach growls. You haven't eaten yet. You won't for hours. And yet you feel full. Somehow, just being near the food, touching it, shaping it, watching it become worthy, it's almost enough. Almost. You're not supposed to see the emperor before breakfast. It's one of those unwritten rules you hear whispered between the kitchen walls, carried on steam and gossip like a cautionary tale. Do not speak to him. Do not bow too slowly. Do not breathe too hard near his chambers before the mango touches his lips. He's not unkind, they say. He's poetic, sensitive, mercurial. One day he gives rubies to the bread boy for folding a paratha in the shape of a crescent moon. The next he banishes a steward because the mango served was warm at the base. And so, when you find yourself pulled quite unexpectedly into the hall, just beyond his private chamber, you do not move. You stand still, your arms stiff, tray trembling faintly in your hands. As the air thickens with a kind of royal tension, perfumed by sandalwood, rosewater, and the faint anxiety of 24 silent servants pretending to be furniture. A eunuch, with a silk fan, as tall as he is, stands near the bedchamber's arched entrance. He doesn't look at you, but he does notice your hands shaking. Still yourself, he murmurs, not unkindly, or he'll notice the tray rattles. You try. You really do. But then the door creaks open not fully, just enough for the faintest sound to escape. A yawn, long and satisfied, like a lion who knows the world will wait. It's followed by a voice, low and scratchy, but not displeased. Is the mango chilled? It asks. The eunuch tilts his head. Yes, Majesty. Chilled in rosewater, and cradled in velvet. A pause, then, not velvet again. Your heart stutters. A small thing, this velvet comment, barely a note of irritation. But the ripple it sends through the room is instant to steward's bow. So quickly their turbans nearly fall off. You swallow and step back, letting the master server take your tray and glide into the chamber like a ghost trained in etiquette. You don't see what happens next, but you hear it. The soft sound of a mango being sliced not with a knife, but with a spoon. A silver one, curved specially to avoid bruising the flesh. The spoon is called nasatha, the delicate spear, and it's said to have been blessed by the emperor's favorite poet, who claimed it once kissed a mango so sweet he wept into his inkpot for 3 days. There's another pause, then chewing. Then miracle of miracles, a sigh. A satisfied one, not too long, not too short. Just enough to make everyone in the hallway relax their shoulders. You hear footsteps, and the eunuch reappears, a faint smile on his lips. He is pleased. The air changes. The sun feels warmer through the latticed windows. You're still holding your breath, he says. The eunuch continues that the mango was soft as the inside of a poet's heart, and cold, but not lonely. Everyone nods, unsure whether that's praise or philosophy. But the important thing is this: no one is being reassigned to pigeon coop duty today. The emperor's mood matters, not just to the kitchen, but to the empire. Historians still debate whether Jahangir's temperament actually influenced trade decisions, military appointments, or tax reforms, but inside this palace, no one doubts it. A good mango could mean a generous decree, a poor one, a cancelled poetry recital, or a sudden new tariff on clove shipments. You shuffle back into the hallway, quietly elated. You didn't touch the fruit, but you stirred the puree. Your fingerprint is faintly, invisibly present in this morning's royal sigh. And it's not over, because Jahangir, ever the obsessive, doesn't stop at the first mango. No, he eats in layers. First the chilled mango slice, then a mango puree with saffron foam, followed by a mango stuffed dumpling, served warm on a banana leaf, with a side of fig-laced yogurt. Today, however, he's feeling whimsical. "Bring me the mango sonnet scroll," he says from within the chamber. This request stirs the nearby scribes, who immediately unroll a thick paper scroll listing over 300 mango varieties, each annotated with verses, tasting notes, and ridiculous metaphors. He reads these during breakfast, sometimes aloud, sometimes silently, sometimes humming. You're told his favorite is the Husnihind entry, which describes the fruit as moist with the memory of rain on a red palace wall. He made that one up himself. And yet, the scroll isn't just poetry, it's policy. Each listed mango was grown in a particular region, managed by a local governor, and tied to a specific tribute route. The ones he praises are granted larger cultivation budgets. The ones he ignores slowly fade into obscurity, their orchards replaced with barley or worse beets. The emperor's breakfast, then, is not just personal, it's agricultural diplomacy. You listen as he calls out a verse about a mango from the Deccan Plateau, then pauses. "Too tart," he mutters, "too hopeful." That mango, you realize, has been unofficially downgraded. Somewhere, a farmer's fortunes just shifted. And still, more food arrives. Honeyed lentils, tamarind crisps, a custard of date milk that's more suggestion than substance. All of it presented like a procession of suitors, each dish vying for the emperor's passing affection. But it's the mango that holds his gaze. "Did you know," the emperor says suddenly to no one in particular, "that in Kashmir they train parakeets to harvest mangoes with silk gloves?" Silence, not for practicality, he adds. Just elegance. You don't know if that's true. No one does. Historians still argue whether Jahangir actually said most of the things attributed to him, or whether his biographers were just excellent daydreamers. But it hardly matters now. He's pleased. He's poetic. And most importantly, he's full. Later, when the trays are returned emptied, but still fragrant, you catch a glimpse of the spoon. The silver one. A tiny streak of mango clings to it, like a trace of sunlight caught in a bowl. You wonder if anyone has ever dared to lick it. Probably not. Probably exiled forever if they tried. And yet, the temptation is there. You step back into the kitchen's heart, where breakfast cleanup has begun. Pots hiss as water hits there, scalding bottoms. A team of servers is already arranging second breakfast, a lighter course, allegedly, though it still includes 5 types of bread, and a soft-boiled quail egg, dyed blue with indigo. But for now, all that matters is this. The emperor smiled. His mood, that delicate force of nature, has lifted. He may write a poem, He may pardon a thief. He may order more mango trees planted near the north gardens. And you with your trembling tray and sleepless hands you helped. Even if you're forgotten by name, you were there. You helped usher a mango into the imperial mood. And the empire, by some strange fruit-scented butterfly effect, feels just a little more at peace. The ranking of fruit in the Mughal court is not a matter of opinion, it is a state ritual, conducted with a gravity that would make modern parliaments seem like noisy bazaars full of children selling broken toys. You find yourself, somehow, allowed to stand just within earshot of the great fruit chamber, where a group of 11 men and 1 woman had been seated in a crescent of velvet cushions, surrounded by scrolls, spittoons, and golden knives so small they look more like jewelry than tools. These are the imperial fruit tasters, officially titled Nikuta Miwa, the Lords of Taste, and each one has passed not only a series of elaborate exams involving taste identification under blindfold and scent memory under duress, but also must compose spontaneous verses about seasonal ripeness at the emperor's whim. You had once heard a tale promptly exaggerated that one of the older tasters had fainted during an exam when asked to distinguish between a mango ripened on the tree and one ripened in a silk-wrapped box. But here they sit, robed in whites and golds, small bowls of mango slices laid before them on mirrored trays, each fruit labeled in the emperor's own handwriting. You would think they were preparing to sign a peace treaty with Persia, the way they squint at each bite, nodding slowly, and glancing at each other as if passing judgment on a soul. You're not allowed to speak here. You shouldn't even be standing this close. But the head kitchen steward has taken a strange liking to you after your mango-stirring performance. And so you've been given a task. Refill the chilled rosewater bowls when they begin to go warm. A small job, but one that lets you linger. And so you do, absorbing everything. One taster, a short man with an eagle tattoo on his wrist and a reputation for identifying 17 flavors in a single slice, takes a bite of the husni hind, chews slowly, and then leans forward. "To lyrical," he says, frowning. "The acidity is like a boastful poet. It lacks humility." Another taster, woman with silver-threaded robes and a sharp, clear voice, disagrees. "It has backbone," she says. It ends on a whisper, like a promise half-kept. A scribe nearby scribbles both opinions on a parchment labeled Hind, Variety Echo. The debates continue for hours. Alfonso versus Malda, Desheri versus Banganopoli. Sometimes the judges close their eyes and whisper the flavor as if tasting a memory. Sometimes they lean forward and discuss trade winds and harvest rainfall. You notice one man chewing the stem of his feather quill. He doesn't even write, he just chews and hums. That, apparently, is how he measures sweetness. Historians still argue whether these sessions were truly influential or mostly symbolic theater. But the decisions made here will be spoken aloud in court, transcribed in Persian and Braj, sent to regional governors, and ultimately printed in the court's own fruit almanac. A fruit almanac, you think? Entire orchards will rise or fall based on the curve of a mango's scent, or whether it reminded someone of a forgotten spring in Kabul. The ranking system is dizzyingly complex. There are 5 main categories: flesh texture, mouthfeel, emotional echo, noble acidity, and post-chew regret, each scored on a scale from heaven's memory to not worth a parrot's tongue. But there are subcategories to 17 of them, including skin humility, pit personality, and aroma resemblance to lost love. These are not fruits. These are philosophies. And yet the tasters take it all seriously. A boy brings over a mango from the New South orchards. It's small, oblong, and very green. He looks nervous. "This is the one that grew from the seed the emperor threw last monsoon," he whispers. The room hushes. The mango is placed before the lead taster, a man known only as Malika Sakik, of taste whose tongue, legend claims, has never once been wrong. He lifts the fruit, smells it, rolls it between his fingers. Then, with infinite patience, slices the thinnest sliver you've ever seen and places it on his tongue. Silence. Even the birds outside pause their chatter. You watch his jaw work slowly, deliberately. You could swear the candle beside him leans forward. After what feels like an hour, he speaks. It is unfinished. Gasps. Then a nod. The mango is gently removed, as if it had failed an exam but might retake it next season. He turns toward you then. You freeze. Water, he says simply, and you step forward, nearly tripping, to refill his rosewater bowl. As you lean in, he glances at your hands. You stirred today, he says. It isn't a question. You nod. He considers you for a breath longer, then closes his eyes and hums. It sounds like approval. The debate resumes. You hear new words now. Jasmine aftertaste. Buttery closure, too cheerful. Tastes like a horse groom's memory. Each fruit is assigned a new rank on the scrolla sacred document, kept under gold leaf wraps, and blessed once a year on the emperor's birthday. You glance at it and see Husneyhind currently holds first position, though there's a new challenger. A golden-orange variety from Bengal named Nurazomandar, Light of the Landlord, which has a flavor profile described as a sunrise seen through silk curtains. On a morning you never wanted to end. One taster disagrees. It's too nostalgic, he says. It makes me sad. The others nod solemnly. This sadness is a serious critique. No one wants a breakfast that tastes like heartbreak. And yet, the mango remains in second place. You realize then that this process, as strange and absurd as it may seem, is also a kind of poetry. A performance of attention, of honoring taste, and texture in a world that often rushes through both. These men and women aren't just ranking fruit, they're measuring the mood of the empire, slice by slice, verse by verse. Somewhere deep in the scroll's folds, you imagine your own handier stir. Your effort lurking just beneath the surface, shaping flavor silently. And for a brief moment, you feel like a secret poet of mangoes, part of something too strange and wonderful to ever explain. You should be asleep, curled under your mat, near the scullery with your arms around a damp apron, and dreams full of paratha steam and mango-scented air. But something about the hush of the garden tonight pulls at your curiosity like a whispered, "Dare," and before you know it, your bare feet are padding across the marble floor of the outer kitchens, past the racks of copper pans and stacked bundles of dried neem wood, out into the moonlit corridor that leads toward the southern orchard. Gates where the stone lions lie half asleep in carved repose, and even the frogs seem too respectful to croak. You have no clear reason to be out here, except a sliver of overheard conversation just before sundown. While sweeping spice husks near the pepper storage, you'd caught a cook mutter to another. Tonight, after the third owl call, by the garden's east wall, we speak of pulp, and while it could have meant nothing, just a joke, just kitchen code for a late snack, or some steamy gossip, your gut said otherwise, because in this palace, the mango is not a fruit, it is a secret, a currency, a weapon disguised in sweetness. And no one trades pulp talk lightly, not unless something forbidden is being unpeeled under moonlight. And so here you are, crouching behind a potted custard apple tree, breath held tight, as two figures emerge from the hedged path. One is familiar. A cook you've seen handling the paring knives with the kind of reverence usually reserved for holy texts, the other cloaked in darker robes, face obscured, moving like someone who's trespassed before. They do not greet each other with warmth, but with ritual. A small silver tin is exchanged, its lid opened to reveal not jewels, not money, but a paste-thick, golden, and gleaming faintly in the moonlight, like melted summer itself. One of them dips a finger in, tastes, nods solemnly, and whispers something that makes the other chuckle softly, before turning serious again. Gesturing toward the east orchard, where a newer batch of mango saplings was planted, just last season, under the patronage of Prince Khusro himself. You strain to hear, and fragments drift your way, grafted without approval. Ripens before monsoon, flesh like muslin, dipped in sun, words that shouldn't be spoken here. Not so close to the royal chambers, not without clearance. Because what they're describing isn't just horticulture. It's espionage. A hybrid mango, sweeter and more resilient than any approved varietal, and grown without the emperor's sanction, which makes it a kind of culinary heresy. One of them produces a folded parchment, and even from here you can tell it's no ordinary scroll. Its edges shimmer slightly, likely infused with oil to mask the scent from palace dogs, and the names on it are dangerous ones, rival chefs from other princely courts, a Portuguese trader recently banned for smuggling almond cuttings in clay dolls. Even a merchant from the Deccan, who once claimed to ferment mangoes into wine and serve it as a sacrament to his goats. The cook reads aloud one of the entries. Fruit number 11. Flavor of memory. Skin like late evening, and both men pause, as if savoring not just the taste, but the idea of it. The thrill of having knowledge not yet tasted by the emperor, a mango not yet blessed by Malakiska, or translated into verse on the scrolls of ranking. What you're witnessing isn't just treason, it's ambition. The quiet kind that blooms in shadows and is fed by risk instead of sunlight. You watch as they seal the tin, press hands in a silent vow, and part ways one back, toward the spice. Towers, the other slipping out through a gap in the wall that leads to the water carrier's trail. You wait a count of 30 before moving, heart pounding in your throat, limbs trembling with the giddiness of danger, and make your way back to the scullery head full of flavors you haven't even tasted, lips sealed shut with secrets no one asked you to carry. And the next morning, as trays are assembled and mangoes are chosen for slicing, you notice something peculiar. One of the fruits, barely larger than a fist, is missing the signature ink mark of imperial approval, yet it's been placed near the top tier, close enough that it might reach the emperor's tray, if no one pays close attention. You glance toward the cook from the night before, and he does not look at you, but he does whistle a tune that no one else in the kitchen seems to recognize, a minor melody, slow and low, like mango sap dripping from a cut branch. You say nothing, of course, because who would believe you, a scullery helper with no name worth writing, no voice in court, no seat at the tasting council, but you remember, and you watch. And when the emperor later tastes a mango and murmurs, curious ... like a new stanza, you almost drop the water bowl in your hand. Historians still debate whether a new varietal appeared in the palace around this time, one not grown in the documented orchards, one that wasn't named until years later under Shah Jahan, who christened it with a term borrowed from poetry, Kyle, the imagined mango. But you know the truth, or at least a version of it, and every time you pass the East Garden wall, you wonder if the roots are still there, still reaching, still dreaming under the soil where secrets and sweetness grow side by side. They arrive without warning, without drums, without the clatter of royal processions, or the poetry of the emperor's heralds, just 3 men and 1 woman in plain cotton robes, traveling under the insignia of the revenue office, bearing scrolls, sealed with red wax and the kind of tired expressions you only earn from counting sacks of lentils for a living. And though they are not loud or armed, or particularly impressive at first glance, the entire kitchen freezes when word spreads. The mango tax inspectors are here, and someone's books had better be in order. It's not that anyone has done anything wrong, well, not officially, it's just that the mango business is slippery, as golden and soft and ripe for mischief as the fruit itself, and the Mughal Empire, for all its grandeur, runs on a tangled web of seasonal taxes, orchard tributes, varietal quotas, and inspection cycles, so complicated even the accountants are known to cry during monsoon. So when the lead inspector steps into the outer courtyard, bald, stoop-backed, his eyes the color of bitter tamarind, you can feel a tension settle over the cooks like a second humidity. This man, whispered to be called Munshi Kadir, is famous. In the worst way, he once fined an entire province for over-reporting fig output by 5 crates, claiming exaggeration as a tax crime of the heart. And another time demoted a warehouse steward after discovering a mislabeled box of dried guava masquerading as mango preserve. Now he's here, scroll in hand, gaze sharp as ginger root, nodding slightly as the steward of fruit tributes bows and offers him the inspection stool, a low marble seat, usually reserved for elderly tasters, polished so smooth it squeaks under. Silk Kadir does not sit at first. He hovers over a basket, opens the lid, lifts a mango with 2 fingers like it might confess something under pressure, sniffs it, then turns to his assistant, an unsmiling woman with ink-stained sleeves, and murmurs, "Mark this one. It feels too heavy for its type." And just like that, the first seed of suspicion is planted. Over the next hour, they work through crate after crate, checking records, asking questions no one is ever prepared to answer. Where exactly was this harvested? Was this branch grafted, or rootstocked? Is this the first flowering? of the mother tree or third generation. And the stewards stammer, pages are flipped, fingerprints smudged the ledgers, and the mangoes, beautiful and golden and sweet-smelling, suddenly feel like smugglers dressed in fruit skin, hiding secrets no one thought would be noticed. You stand just inside the kitchen doorway, a bowl of rinsed coriander in your hands, forgotten, watching as the woman inspector peels back a palm leaf wrapper and frowns, pulling from the crate a mango with a mark it shouldn't have, a tiny ink dot meant to signal export quality, not tribute class, and though the difference is small, it means this mango was taken from the Emperor's reserve batch and rerouted into trade crates, a punishable offense if proved intentional. This crate came from the South Orchard, she says, voice even, but it contains a varietal known to grow only near Agra, and in that moment, the steward's face drains of color, and you feel the entire kitchen inhale as one, like the palace itself is bracing for a thunderclap. But Kader simply holds out his hand, and the mango is placed within it, like evidence, at a trial. And he studies, it turns it, presses it gently, then slices it open with a blade so thin it hums in the air, the fruit parts perfectly, no bruise, no mess. Just golden flesh shining under the courtyard's filtered sunlight, and he leans in, sniffs, then takes a bite. There's a long silence, and then he closes his eyes, not in pleasure, not quite, but in concentration, like the flavor is a paragraph he must reread. Finally he speaks. This is the Malda Emperor cut, he says. Flown in last year and bred only for elite tasting scrolls. It was never meant for bulk crates. The implication is clear: someone diverted an exclusive royal mango into the general tribute load, possibly to increase volume, possibly to impress a local governor, or possibly just to shave off the paperwork. And while no one is being accused yet, the tension climbs like a snake around a branch. Historians still debate whether this kind of inspection was truly about revenue, or more about performance. The empire reminding its servants, through quiet fear and precision, that even fruit is a matter of law. But in this moment, under Kadir's gaze, it feels very real. Suddenly, a younger steward stammers. That crate must have been mislabeled. There was a mix-up last week. We rewrapped everything after the flood. And Kadir arches one thin brow, turns toward the assistant, and she pulls from her satchel a second scroll, this one marked in green wax. The seal of emergency cross-checks. She opens it, revealing a shipment log with fine, tightly packed script, and together they read in silence. Eventually, Kadir sighs, then folds the scroll, places the mango slice down on a clean cloth, and says, "Find the steward's quarter ration for 1 week. Deduct 2 goats from the orchard's fodder budget. Alert the Poetry Council that Varieties Malda Emperor cut is to be temporarily reclassified as delicately compromised for scroll ranking purposes. It could have been worse. It has been worse." Everyone exhales, and the kitchen stirs back into motion, like a clock resuming its tick after a minute of stillness. You return to your herbs, hands shaking just slightly, realizing how close the whole kitchen came to censure. How easily the empire's gears grind in silence, until suddenly they shriek. As the inspectors depart, their scrolls once again sealed and tucked under arms. You catch a glimpse of the assistant inspector slipping a mango into her side pouch. Not the compromised one, but a simple, unranked variety from the edge of the tribute pile. She doesn't steal it exactly, just lifts it gently, like claiming a memento from a place where words taste like nectar and rules are written in pulp. And you wonder, as her footsteps vanish beyond the colonnade, whether she will slice it slowly in her own kitchen, taste it in silence, and decide something about it, a detail not listed on any scroll, a flavor that no one recorded, a small truth belonging only to her. And so the mango tax inspectors vanish as quietly as they came, leaving behind the ghost of rules, a rearranged crate, and the lingering scent of compliance masked in sweetness. It begins, as most memorable court performances do, with a single raised eyebrow from the emperor. A lazy gesture that seems casual, but causes at least 17 people to hold their breath. Because everyone in the Mughal court knows that when Akbar arches his brow during breakfast, it either means someone's going to be promoted, or someone's going to be publicly humiliated. And sometimes, most delightfully, it means both. And today, as he sits cross-legged on his silver-threaded mat, A bowl of chilled mango slices before him. He suddenly leans back, dabs the corner of his mouth with rosewater-dipped muslin, and says to no one in particular, but somehow, to everyone, "Let us see whose memory still serves sweeter than the mango." And just like that, without warning or preparation or chance to invent excuses, the great mango memory test is summoned into existence. Scribes leap into motion, courtiers whisper behind sleeves, and you somehow still lingering nearby, under the pretense of replacing. A brass jug of cardamom water frees in place as the emperor claps his hands and declares, 5 mangoes, 5 names, 5 memories. Fail, and your shame shall ripen into verse. No one laughs, not even the jesters, because Akbar is not joking, not entirely. And everyone remembers the last time he conducted a test like this. It involved 10 varieties of rice, and ended with a nobleman writing a 6-page apology poem titled, "O grain of grains, why hast thou betrayed me?" which is still read at dinner parties, when guests need a reason not to over-brag about their taste buds. And now, as low tables are cleared, and 5 covered trays are carried in by white-turbaned attendants, the courtiers begin shifting nervously, in their robes, trying to recall every mango they've eaten this season, every description overheard from Malakisaka, every poetic metaphor the emperor himself has murmured mid-bite, because this is not just a game, it is a public test of wit, loyalty, and culinary sensitivity, and in this court, flavor is a form of literacy. The first volunteer, or rather, the first person volunteered by the emperor's steady gaze, is a scholar named Humam, a well-respected man known for his work on translating Sanskrit texts, and also for his deep, visible fear of mango pulp. He is blindfolded with a silk scarf, embroidered with the phrase, "Truth lies within taste," handed a slice from the first tray, and the room falls utterly silent as he chews, brow furrowed, clearly trying not to panic. Finally, he swallows, clears his throat, and says, "I believe this is a slightly underripe langra, likely picked just before full rain." And while a few servants murmur approval, the emperor tilts his head and smiles faintly. "Close," he says, "but incorrect. It is a Banganopoli from the prince's private reserve." And just like that, Umam is handed a scroll and inkpot and told to write a couplet of repentance, which he does with the grace of someone writing his own mango obituary. The next challenger, a general with a famously unshakable stomach, frowns after his first bite, then boldly declares, "This is clearly a diceri, its brightness is unmistakable," and Akbar's smile widens. "Your confidence is admirable," he replies, "but this is a gulab khas. Perhaps you mistook its floral scent for valor." The general bows, accepts his poetic punishment, and begins composing something that rhymes honor with pulp. As the test continues, each mango is tasted, guessed, and usually guessed wrong, though one court musician comes quite close, identifying a rare hybrid by describing it as like kissing a sunset you weren't ready to forget, which pleases the emperor enough to grant him a mango-shaped medal carved from sandalwood. You, of course, are not meant to participate, not in any official way. But as the final tray is lifted and a slice is presented for the last guess, Akbar glances around, then gestures vaguely toward your direction. "And you, stirring boy," he says, "step forward. What does your sleep-steeped tongue remember?" And for a moment, the world tilts. You can feel the sweat behind your ears, the dry panic of your tongue, but somehow you find yourself walking toward the tray. Heart a hammer in your chest, and the slice is placed into your hand, cool, soft, fragrant in a way that feels like the gardens just after rain, and you close your eyes. Take a bite, and chew slowly, remembering the crate you helped stack 2 mornings ago. The scribbled mark, the faint echo of nutmeg in the aftertaste, and you speak Malda, 3rd flowering, tree 21, eastern plot, and the emperor's silence is so thick, it's almost music before he bursts into laughter. Claps his hands, and says, "Let it be known that even the least among us may taste the truth." And suddenly, everyone is clapping, and your ears are burning. Someone even whispers, "Lucky guess," behind their sleeve. But it doesn't matter, because the emperor has tasted your answer and found it sweet. Historians still argue whether this moment actually happened. Some claim the mango memory test is an invention of later court poets, trying to flatter Akbar's love of performance. Others say the poetry punishments were exaggerated for dramatic effect, but records show at least one scroll in the court archive listing verses composed in pulped shame. And among them, in the margins, is a scribbled couplet. My tongue betrayed me at sunrise. Now I dine with the shadows of rind. Believed to be written by Humam himself. You return to the kitchen not as a hero exactly, but with a strange, subtle glono. One speaks of it directly. But your water bowls are refilled faster. Your corner mat is folded neatly when you return to it. And once, late at night, Malik passes you in the hallway and simply nods without a word, which in this palace may as well be a knighthood. And so the test ends, as all good tests should, with a blend of humiliation, delight, and just enough mystery to keep people wondering what their own tongue might remember when it matters most. Beyond the sunlit courtyards and the bustling clatter of kitchenware, past the tiled walkways that shimmer with the mosaic of peacock feathers and jasmine blossoms, lies a secret even the highest courtiers rarely glimpse, a garden hidden behind a lattice of rose vines and guarded by an old, silent caretaker whose existence feels woven into the soil itself, as if he grew from the roots of the trees he tends. This sanctuary, tucked away in the southwest corner of the palace grounds, is where the most prized mango trees are cultivated, rare varieties whispered about in market stalls, far beyond Agra. Exotic breeds imported from distant lands like Persia and the Deccan, nurtured with reverence and mystery. The caretaker, a man called Baba Shah, moves with the quiet patience of the earth. His weathered hands, as familiar with each leaf and branch as a poet is with verses, and though no one knows exactly how long he has served the empire, his presence is as constant as the monsoon winds. Baba Shah rarely speaks, but when he does, his voice is soft as ripening fruit, telling stories that blend fact with folklore, such as the time a mango tree supposedly bloomed in winter, defying seasons and scholars alike, an event that some dismiss as myth while others claim proof still rests in a sealed garden diary. The air in this hidden orchard carries a scent that is intoxicating, a blend of musk, citrus, and the faintest hint of honeyed spice, the kind of aroma that makes you pause, close your eyes, and imagine the world slowing down around you. You follow Baba Shah along narrow paths lined with soft moss and golden petals, watching as he pauses by a tree whose branches droop under the weight of golden globes, each mango a jewel catching dappled sunlight, and he gently touches the bark, murmuring to it in a language that sounds like wind through leaves, a language no one outside these walls understands, a lullaby for fruit. Historians still argue whether these secret gardens were truly used for experimental cultivation, or were simply status symbols designed to impress foreign dignitaries. But the fact remains that many of the empire's most beloved mango varieties trace their lineage back to this hidden plot, where science and superstition dance together under the watchful eye of the caretaker. You watch Baba Shah select a single mango, plucking it with care and slicing it open with a small, curved knife that glints like a sliver of moonlight, revealing flesh so vibrant it almost glows, sweet, tender, and bursting with a flavor that lingers on your tongue long after the bite. And as you stand there, the world outside the garden walls feels like a distant dream, replaced by a serene moment suspended in honeyed sunlight, the kind of quiet where even time seems to rest. Baba Shah's eyes meet yours briefly, and in that glance, there is a silent invitation to appreciate the delicate balance of nature and nurture that allows such fruits to exist, a balance maintained through centuries of careful tending, whispered secrets, and an almost spiritual devotion to the mango tree. It's a reminder that, even in an empire built on conquest and spectacle, sometimes the quietest corners hold the sweetest treasures, and sometimes those treasures teach us that patience, care, and a touch of mystery are the true keys to greatness. The mornings in the Mughal palace often begin with a quiet ritual that might seem simple at first glance, but is steeped in layers of tradition, ceremony, and just a hint of eccentricity. Breakfast itself, especially when mango season arrives, is less about mere sustenance, and more like an elaborate sensory performance. A carefully choreographed moment, where every bite is an opportunity to celebrate empire, nature, and the peculiar hierarchy of fruit appreciation. You find yourself seated among nobles and poets, the warm sunlight filtering softly through latticed windows, and casting intricate shadows on the marble floors. As trays of mangoes arrive, arranged not by size or color, but by the emperor's notoriously serious mango rankings, a secret system that judges each fruit's sweetness, texture, aroma, and even its story, because for Akbar and his court, a mango isn't just foodites, a narrative waiting to be tasted. These rankings, whispered about in hushed tones by courtiers who compete to predict the emperor's favorites, classify mangoes into categories like the royal nectar, reserved only for the ripest, most fragrant specimens, and the rustic charm, which acknowledges those humble yet hearty fruits harvested from the edges of the orchard where wild bees make their homes. As you nibble on a slice of the famed himayat, you're told it is prized not only for its flavor, but because legend claims it once saved a prince from melancholy. Its sweetness said to lift spirits in the darkest hours, though historians still argue whether such stories are more poetic license than fact. The belief itself adds a certain magic to the morning's meal. Between bites, you overhear the courtiers discussing the subtle differences in mango shapes and colors, debating whether the thin-skinned safety's silky texture truly surpasses the robust Alfonso, or if the juicy Desheri, with its hint of peach, should be elevated above all others. These discussions, filled with laughter and good-natured jabs, often stretch the breakfast into a leisurely affair lasting hours. A stark contrast to the outside world where battles and politics never sleep. The emperor himself, always attentive, yet never hurried, partakes with a kind of deliberate pleasure, savoring each morsel as if it were a delicate poem, occasionally pausing to announce a new decree, such as granting additional land to the orchard, caretakers, or commissioning a painter to capture the morning's fruit display for posterity. Your own role, though minor, feels oddly important too. Pour rosewater into tiny silver cups, the floral scent mingling with the mango aroma, and you listen as the court poets spontaneously compose verses inspired by the fruit, their words as sweet and sticky as the juice that drips down fingers. At one point, a particularly mischievous poet claims that the mango's roundness symbolizes the perfection of the empire, prompting a ripple of chuckles and a few exaggerated bowing gestures toward the emperor, who responds with a faint, knowing smile. Amidst all this, you realize that the breakfast table is more than a place to eat. It's a stage where culture, politics, nature, and art blend seamlessly, where even a simple mango slice can carry the weight of history and the promise of a shared moment. And as the sun rises higher and the morning birds begin their songs, you feel a calm settle over you, a quiet appreciation for the way these rituals, these rankings, and even the silly debates about mango superiority offer a gentle anchor in a world otherwise ruled by impermanence and change. In the cool, fragrant air of the Mughal mornings, where the faint rustling of palm leaves blends with distant calls of palace birds, the delicate art of mango preservation reveals itself as more than a practical necessity. It becomes a ritual steeped in patience, tradition, and a dash of alchemical mystery that promises the sweet essence of summer long after the last golden fruit has been plucked from the trees, and you, standing among the palace servants, watch as skilled hands prepare the mangoes for storage, slicing them into thin, translucent strips or pounding them into thick, fragrant pastes that will later be transformed into preserves, pickles, and jams, each recipe guarded like a treasured family secret, passed down from generation to generation with reverence and a knowing smile. The process begins early, just as the morning mist still clings to the garden blossoms, with mangoes carefully selected for their ripeness and texture, often those deemed too fragile for the bustling markets, for here in the palace, nothing is wasted, and every fruit deserves its moment to shine beyond the fleeting season. And as you watch the workers lay out the sliced mangoes on woven mats under the gentle warmth of the sun, their golden flesh catching the light like liquid amber, the aroma fills the air with a sweet Thames that drifts softly into the kitchens and courtyards, a silent promise of delights to come. Historians still argue whether the Mughal techniques for preserving mangoes were directly influenced by Persian methods, or if they developed uniquely within the empire's vast territories. But regardless of origin, the resulting delicacies are undeniably complex, their flavors deepened and transformed by the slow dance of time and nature. And you soon learn that each preserved mango product has its own role at the royal table, Some serve as palate cleansers between courses, others as subtle enhancers for richly spiced meats, and a few rare types are even reserved as gifts for visiting dignitaries, wrapped carefully in silk and accompanied by verses praising their exquisite taste. Among these treasures is pop head, a thin sheet of sun-dried mango pulp that crackles softly when broken, offering a perfect balance of tartness and sweetness that tingles on the tongue and invites quiet contemplation. And then there are the pickles, spicy, tangy, and fragrant with mustard seeds and fenugreek that awaken the senses and provide a surprising contrast to the delicate rice dishes and creamy yogurts served alongside them. The preparation of these delicacies requires not only skill, but an intimate understanding of the mango's seasonal moods. For too much sun risks turning the fruit bitter, too little moisture invites spoilage, and the timing of harvest must be perfectly timed to catch the mango's peak of ripeness, a moment so fleeting that it demands attention and respect. And you find yourself marveling at how this fragile fruit becomes a symbol of the empire's sophistication, its ability to harmonize nature's bounty with human ingenuity. Beyond the practical, the ritual of preserving mangoes also carries a spiritual dimension, with some palace priests blessing the storage jars and whispering ancient chants to ensure longevity and sweetness, a practice that blends Islamic mysticism with older regional beliefs, creating a uniquely Mughal alchemy that seeks to capture not just flavor but essence. And as you help carry the finished jars into the cool storage chambers beneath the palace, their surfaces sweating faintly with condensation, you can't help but feel that you're participating in a tradition that connects you to centuries of hands that have loved, nurtured, and preserved these fruits, weaving together history, culture, and the simple, profound joy of mangoes lingering on the tongue long after the season has passed. As dawn stretches its pale fingers over the vast Mughal Empire, you find yourself immersed in the rituals surrounding one of the most cherished, yet surprisingly complex components of the morning meal. The humble but exalted mango chutney, a preparation that occupies a delicate space between sweet and savory, spice and subtlety, tradition and innovation. And as you watch the palace cooks in their flowing robes meticulously grind spices and hand-select mangoes, their movements, slow and deliberate, almost meditative, you realize that this chutney is far more than a mere condiment. It is a living testament to the empire's culinary, artistry, and cultural exchange. The mangoes chosen for chutney are often slightly underripe, their firm flesh lending a tangy brightness that balances the rich layers of ingredients such as roasted cumin, fragrant coriander seeds, fiery red chili, and the ever-present hint of jaggery, a form of unrefined sugar that lends a deep, molasses-like sweetness, binding the flavors into a harmonious whole, while a splash of tamarind adds a sharp contrast that awakens the palate gently, never harshly. The preparation takes place in large, gleaming copper vessels, their surfaces hammered and polished by master artisans, which hold the heat evenly, allowing the chutney to simmer slowly over low flames fueled by fragrant sandalwood chips, infusing the mixture with a whisper of smoky sweetness. You hear the faint clinking of brass spoons against the pot, the soft bubbling of the mixture thickening, and the subtle shift in aroma as fresh mint leaves and chopped ginger are stirred in at the last moment, a touch that adds brightness and freshness, evoking the lush gardens of the palace itself. This chutney is served with almost every breakfast dish, from the buttery parathas to the steaming bowls of ghee. Its presence expected like a trusted friend. And you notice how the courtiers eagerly dip their morsels into the chutney, savoring the interplay of flavors that dances across their tongues. Historians still argue whether this style of mango chutney evolved primarily from indigenous Indian cooking traditions, or was significantly influenced by Persian and Central Asian tastes, brought by successive emperors and their retinues. But, regardless, it has become a defining feature of Mughal dining, a culinary symbol of the empire's cosmopolitan nature. The recipes themselves are closely guarded secrets, with slight variations passed down through generations of palace cooks. And as you listen to their soft-spoken debates over the ideal balance of sweetness and spice, you sense the pride they take in their craft, a quiet artistry that transcends the bustle of court politics and military campaigns. Outside the palace walls, the fame of Mughal mango chutney spreads slowly like ripples on a pond, carried by traveling merchants and envoys who share jars of the precious paste with distant rulers and dignitaries. And you imagine these jars wrapped carefully in embroidered cloth, transported along winding mountain passes and dusty caravan routes, each one a little ambassador of the empire's refined tastes. In the kitchens, you also learn of lesser-known chutney varieties made with smoked mangoes, or even fermented blends, preparations that hint at experimental approaches to flavor and preservation, revealing a curiosity and willingness to innovate that surprises you, given the palace's reputation for strict adherence to tradition. All the while, you feel the quiet pulse of history beneath the simmering pot. The layered stories of conquest and culture, migration and invention, mingling as seamlessly as the flavors in the chutney, reminding you that even something as simple as a breakfast condiment can carry the weight and warmth of an empire's soul, waiting patiently to be tasted and remembered. The ritual of selecting mangoes each morning in the palace grounds is less like a chore and more like a ceremony that requires the keen eyes and refined palate of an expert. And as you walk alongside the appointed mango connoisseurs, known as the shakeen, you realize their role is part science, part art, and entirely essential to the rhythm of the Mughal breakfast. These specialists, often elderly men and women who have dedicated decades to the study of mango varieties, inspect the fruits with almost reverential care, turning each mango slowly under the dappled sunlight filtering through ornate china trees, feeling for subtle changes in texture that might signal the perfect ripeness, sniffing the air around the fruit for that elusive hint of sweetness that suggests the sugars have reached their peak, and occasionally pressing a finger gently against the skin to test for firmness. The shakeen carry small notebooks, where they jot down observations about the seasons, yields, weather conditions, and the performance of individual trees in the palace orchard, data that influences decisions ranging from how many mangoes to serve at breakfast to which varieties might be grafted or replaced in coming years, illustrating a surprisingly sophisticated agricultural knowledge that often goes unnoticed beneath the grandeur of palace life. You learn that there is a hierarchy even among mango varieties, some considered imperial grade because of their exceptional qualities, others valued more for their robustness and ability to endure transport to distant provinces, and still others prized for their unique flavors that evoke the lands they originated from. Each mango variety tells a story of trade routes, cultural exchange, and the empire's far-reaching influence. Intriguingly, the role of the shakeen is not purely practical, but also ceremonial. Before the mangoes are approved for consumption, a brief blessing is performed where saffron-infused water is sprinkled over the fruit, accompanied by soft chants that invoke the bounties of nature and the blessings of the heavens, reflecting the empire's fusion of spiritual reverence with agricultural expertise, a combination that blurs the lines between science and ritual. Historians still debate the extent to which these specialists influenced the botanical development of mango varieties within the empire, with some arguing they were active participants in early horticultural experimentation, while others suggest their role was more symbolic, preserving traditions rather than innovating new ones. During your time with them, you discover fascinating stories about how certain mangoes were rumored to have medicinal properties, believed to ease digestion or boost energy, and how these beliefs affected which fruits were served to the emperor himself versus the common courtiers. One particularly quirky tidbit you overhear is the claim that a certain rare mango, the Chandro Prakash, was nicknamed the Moonlight Mango because its pale, almost luminescent skin glowed faintly at night, a detail that has led some to speculate it might have been a different species altogether, or simply the product of palace myth-making. Whatever the truth, these stories add a layer of enchantment to the morning rituals, transforming routine selection into a shared narrative that connects everyone at court. As you watch the shakeen hand over the chosen fruits to the kitchen staff, the air fills once again with the sweet, familiar aroma of ripe mangoes, and you realize that behind every luscious slice on the breakfast plate lies a web of knowledge, devotion, and centuries-old tradition, a quiet testament to the empire's reverence for nature's gifts and the human passion to understand and celebrate them in their fullest glory. The Grand Mughal breakfast table is not merely a place for sustenance, but a stage where centuries of cultural blending and culinary artistry come alive, and you find yourself transported to a world where the ordinary mango is elevated through subtle touches into an experience that engages all your senses in ways both familiar and enchanting. As the golden morning sun filters through delicate latticework, windows and casts intricate patterns across the polished marble floors, the air is thick with the mingled aromas of cardamom, saffron, fresh mint, and of course, the unmistakable sweet fragrance of ripe mangoes, scent that evokes both comfort and exotic mystery, gently coaxing you awake with promises of simple pleasures and hidden depths. Among the array of dishes, one stands out for its unexpected elegance: the mango and rose petal rata, a cooling yogurt-based accompaniment infused with crushed rose petals and flecks of fragrant mango pulp that melds the creamy tang of curd with floral and fruity notes, offering a gentle counterpoint to the rich, buttery parathis and spiced meats also gracing the table. This seemingly simple dish encapsulates the Mughal talent for balancing contrasting flavors and textures, creating harmony in every bite, much like the empire itself sought to blend diverse peoples and traditions into a cohesive whole. As you dip a morsel of bread into the rata, you feel the soothing coolness wash over your tongue, calming the palate and preparing it for the next wave of flavors, a sensory dance choreographed over centuries of refinement. Historians still debate whether the incorporation of rose petals in savory dishes originated in Persian culinary practices brought by the early Mughals, or developed independently in the Indian subcontinent as a result of the abundance of fragrant, local flowers. But either way, the practice is a hallmark of Mughal kitchens, and one that continues to inspire chefs today. Alongside the rata, you notice delicate bowls of dried mango powder, known as amshore, sprinkled lightly over some dishes to impart a tangy brightness, an ingredient that adds a surprising complexity and hints at the inventive spirit present. In everyday Mughal cooking, the mango, in all its forms, fresh, dried, powdered, pickled, or pureed, permeates the breakfast table like a quiet, sweet thread weaving the meal together, connecting seemingly disparate elements into a cohesive narrative of taste and tradition. You learn from the palace cooks that the use of dried mango powder also had practical roots, enabling the preservation of mango's flavor during the long, hot months when fresh fruit was unavailable, and its tangy kick was especially prized for awakening the appetite gently in the morning. A thoughtful touch in a diet designed to fuel long days of governance and ceremony. A quirky detail shared by one elder chef catches your ear. He swears that centuries ago, a mischievous prince once swapped amchur powder with powdered gold leaf in a prank, causing both laughter and panic when the rich and powerful guests debated the unexpected glitter in their food, though historians are skeptical this ever truly happened. The story persists as a charming example of palace humor and whimsy. As you sip your spiced tea and observe the unfolding breakfast scene, you notice how the rhythmic serving of mango dishes punctuates the meal like a refrain, reminding everyone present of the empire's deep-rooted connection to this golden fruit, a connection that goes beyond taste to symbolize prosperity, fertility, and the sweetness of life. The mango's significance extends even into Mughal poetry and art, where it frequently appears as a metaphor for beauty and desire, reflecting the fruit's pervasive cultural resonance that transcends the dinner plate. Intriguingly, some scholars argue that the Mughals' almost ritualistic reverence for mangoes at breakfast helped shape broader agricultural practices, encouraging the cultivation of diverse mango varieties to satisfy imperial demand and aesthetic preference, thereby influencing the genetic diversity of mangoes in the region. As the meal winds down and the last scraps of mango chutney are savored, you feel a profound appreciation for the layers of history, taste, and meaning infused into what might otherwise seem a simple breakfast, realizing that within each bite lies a story as rich and complex as the empire itself, quietly waiting to be uncovered by those willing to savor it slowly. As you settle deeper into the rhythm of Mughal mornings, your senses become attuned not just to the sweet aroma of mangoes, but also to the quiet, essential presence of spices, those tiny powerhouses of flavor and culture that quietly shape every dish before you. The grand breakfast table is never just about food. It is a delicate symphony of tastes and smells, a living testament to the empire's sprawling reach and the centuries of trade and tradition that brought such richness to a single meal. Today, you are drawn into the world of the masalki, the spice masters whose role in the Mughal kitchens is both vital and highly revered. Watching them work, you realize that their craft is a blend of precision science and artistic intuition, honed over generations and passed down like secret family treasures. These specialists carefully select and measure each spice, knowing that a pinch too much or too little can upset the subtle balance of flavors that define the Mughal breakfast experience. The spices themselves tell stories. Cardamom, with its cooling sweetness, is often reserved for the delicate morning tea, its aroma lifting the spirit gently without overwhelming the senses. Cinnamon's warm and woody notes find their way into slow-simmered lentil dishes and rich breads, adding a comforting depth that soothes and sustains. Clove's sharp bitterness cuts through the creamy richness of yogurts and chutneys, lending complexity and intrigue. And saffron, the jewel among spices, appears as golden threads, steeped in warm milk or water, releasing an ethereal floral fragrance that transforms even the simplest dishes into moments of sheer luxury. You find yourself imagining the long, arduous journeys these spices took to arrive in the Mughal kitchens. Cinnamon bark peeled from ancient Sri Lankan forests, cardamom pods harvested from the lush western Ghats, cloves plucked from the spice islands of Indonesia, and saffron carefully cultivated in the highlands of Persia. Each spice embodies a fragment of geography, history, and human endeavor, their paths crossing in this single empire's kitchens. Historians still debate how much the Mughals' fondness for spices was influenced by the medical traditions of Unani and Ayurveda, which attribute various health benefits to different spices, and how much was driven by pure culinary experimentation and taste preferences. Whatever the case, the resulting breakfasts were meals designed to soothe the body, stimulate the palate, and prepare the mind for the long day ahead. There are whispers among the palace staff of a few spice blends rumored to have mild aphrodisiac qualities, a secret ingredient passed between favored courtiers to enliven their mornings. Before important court meetings, a kind of delicious diplomacy that speaks to the human desire to find pleasure and potency even in the smallest rituals. Watching the masalki toast their carefully measured spices over low flames, you notice how the kitchen fills with an intoxicating aroma, heady mix of warmth and sweetness that wraps itself around everyone present like a comforting shawl. This scent mingles seamlessly with the fruity mango notes, the creamy richness of slow-cooked lentils, and the earthy aromas of fresh breads baked from finely milled wheat imported from the empire's northern plains. The spice masters are scrupulous about quality, sourcing only the best crops from trusted merchants, often testing small batches for freshness and flavor before approving their use, underscoring how deeply the Mughals valued culinary excellence as a reflection of imperial grandeur, beyond flavor. These spices also serve pragmatic purposes. Cardamom and cinnamon are known to aid digestion and soothe the stomach, while clove has mild antiseptic properties, small but meaningful contributions to the health of the emperor and his courtiers, especially in a time when medical knowledge was limited and preventive care was often sought through diet. The sophisticated layering of spice and flavor reveals a Mughal philosophy that food is not just nourishment but medicine, pleasure, and art, all intertwined in a single bowl. As the morning meal draws to a close, the lingering fragrance of these spices continues to hang in the air, a gentle reminder of the empire's mastery over both nature and culture. You realize that this experience is more than just eating; it is a sensory journey into history, where every bite connects you to a vast network of traders, farmers, cooks, poets, and emperors, all united by the humble yet extraordinary power of spice. This culinary legacy, preserved through centuries, still influences South Asian cooking today, shaping how modern kitchens approach balance, aroma, and taste. In this way, the Mughal breakfast table becomes a living museum, where the past's richness can be savored slowly, like a fine mango ripe with history. As the golden sunlight filters through the ornate yali screens and bathes the palace courtyard in a soft honeyed glow, you find yourself drifting gently into the realm of Mughal breakfast beverages, an often overlooked but integral part of the morning ritual that quietly complements the rich, fruity flavors of the mango-centric fare before you. The Mughal emperors and their courtiers understood well that the right drink could elevate the entire breakfast experience. offering a soothing counterpoint or a refreshing burst to cleanse the palate between bites. Among the most beloved beverages was the famed sheer chai, a creamy milk tea subtly spiced with cardamom and sometimes a whisper of cinnamon or clove. Watching the tea masters prepare this daily elixir, you notice the meticulous care with which the tea leaves are boiled. Alongside fresh milk, the process slow and deliberate, coaxing out a velvety texture and a delicate balance of flavor that warms your throat with every sip. Sheer chai was more than just a drink. It was a comforting morning hug in a cup, a gentle invitation to pause and savor the moment before the day's demands took hold. But the Mughal breakfast was not limited to tea alone. You encounter the lesser-known koos, sherbet, a cool, fragrant drink made from the roots of the koos grass, prized for its subtle vanilla-like aroma and cooling properties, which were especially appreciated during the scorching Indian summers. This sherbet, often infused with rosewater and a touch of sugar, offered a refreshing contrast to the heavier dishes on the table, and was served in delicate glass tumblers that shimmered in the morning light. Intriguingly, koozie sherbet also had a medicinal reputation, believed to calm the nerves and aid digestion, a fact that illustrates how deeply intertwined the Mughal culinary world was with the principles of wellness. Historians still debate the extent to which such drinks were regularly consumed across social classes, as surviving records primarily reflect palace life, leaving the everyday breakfast habits of common folk less well documented. Nonetheless, these beverages provide a fascinating glimpse into the sensory landscape of the Mughal morning, where taste, aroma, and even temperature were carefully orchestrated to create a harmonious experience. A charming anecdote from Palace Chronicles reveals that one emperor was so fond of sheer chai that he insisted it be prepared by a particular tea master, whose precise timing and stirring technique were said to bring out the soul of the drink, a small reminder that even in grand courts, personal preferences and ritual nuances shaped daily life. As you sip your own imagined sheer chai, you notice how the gentle spices awaken your senses without overwhelming them, perfectly complementing the sweetness of the mango dishes and the earthiness of the breads. This balance of flavors and textures, you realize, is a defining characteristic of Mughal breakfasts. Nothing too bold, nothing to faint, but a carefully tuned symphony designed to soothe and sustain. The legacy of these beverages lives on, their recipes adapted and cherished in contemporary South Asian households and tea stalls, bridging past and present through the shared language of flavor and comfort. As the morning meal concludes, the lingering warmth of sheer chai and the faint floral notes of koos sherbet continue to mingle with the fading mango scents, wrapping the palace in a gentle olfactory embrace. You feel a quiet contentment settling over you, a subtle reminder that even the simplest elements, cup of tea, a glass of sherbet, can carry centuries of history and care. In this way, the Mughal breakfast ritual reveals itself not just as a meal, but as a slow, sensory journey through time, inviting you to savor not only the food and drink, but the stories and traditions that enrich them. As the morning lingers and the golden light softens, you now turn your attention to the breads that grace the Mughal breakfast table, warm, pillowy companions to the rich lentils, spiced yogurts, and fragrant mango dishes. These breads are more than mere staples. They are delicate expressions of culinary artistry, each variety shaped by tradition, region, and the refined tastes of the imperial court. You watch the bakers, known as nanbe, carefully prepare doughs from finely milled wheat sourced from the fertile northern plains of the empire. Their hands work with practiced ease, kneading and folding, coaxing air into the mixture to achieve the perfect balance of softness and structure. One popular bread, the rumali roti, earns its name from its paper-thin texture, almost translucent, as it is swiftly tossed and stretched before being cooked on the convex surface of a hot iron griddle. This bread, light and supple, serves as a gentle vehicle for scooping up lentils and chutneys, absorbing their flavors without overpowering them. In contrast, the kulcha, a slightly thicker, leavened bread, often enriched with butter or milk, offers a richer, more substantial mouthfeel, perfect for pairing with the morning's heartier dishes. Interestingly, the Mughal kitchen also introduced the shrimo, a slightly sweet, saffron-tinged flatbread, soaked in milk and flavored with cardamom, served occasionally during special breakfasts or feasts. This bread's tender crumb and delicate sweetness provide a lovely counterpoint to the more savory elements of the meal. Historians still debate the exact origins of some of these breads, with some attributing them to Central Asian influences brought by the Mughals themselves, while others point to indigenous Indian culinary practices that merged with Persian and Turkic traditions over centuries. This blending of cultures is perhaps most evident in the breads, which embody a synthesis of textures, flavors, and cooking techniques that mirror the empire's own cosmopolitan character. A quirky tidbit you overhear is that some bakers would sing or chant softly as they worked, a tradition believed to encourage the yeast to rise. Better, a charming reminder that even ancient culinary arts sometimes carried a touch of superstition or ritual. You also notice the subtle but deliberate use of ghee, clarified butter, both in the dough and as a finishing touch on the breads, adding a glossy sheen and a rich nutty aroma that makes each bite more indulgent. The presence of ghee speaks to the importance of layering flavors and textures in Mughal cuisine, as well as the practical need for nourishing fats in a diet designed to sustain long days of courtly duties. As you wrap a piece of rumali roti around a spoonful of spiced lentils and mango chutney, the interplay of soft bread, spicy sweet condiments, and creamy lentils creates a harmonious bite that epitomizes the Mughal breakfast's gentle balance. This moment, simple yet profound, connects you with centuries of culinary tradition, where each ingredient and technique was carefully chosen to create not just sustenance, but pleasure. The bread, humble in appearance, thus becomes a silent witness to the empire's history, reflecting trade routes, cultural exchanges, and evolving tastes that continue to influence South Asian cuisine today. As the breakfast concludes and the bakers begin to prepare for the next meal, you feel the comforting weight of these breads not just in your stomach, but in the story they tell of a world where food was an art, a science, and a language of its own. The morning sun continues its slow ascent as you settle into the subtler details of the Mughal breakfast, the sauces and condiments that, while often overlooked, quietly hold the meal together like soft-spoken narrators of flavor. Among these, the most revered is the array of chutneys and pickles, each a complex layering of sweet, sour, and spicy notes, designed not just to complement the main dishes, but to awaken the senses gently and prepare the palate for the day ahead. Mango chutney, of course, dominates the table. But what catches your attention is the variety of preparations and the artistry behind each one. Some chutneys are made from raw, unripe mangoes, simmered slowly with mustard seeds, jaggery, and a hint of chili, resulting in a tangy, slightly spicy condiment that brightens the heavier lentils and breads. Others feature ripe mangoes cooked with fragrant spices like fennel and star anise, yielding a sweeter, more aromatic profile that pairs beautifully with the subtly spiced yogurts served alongside. The painstaking care with which these chutneys are prepared, often by women in the palace kitchens who guard their recipes, closely underscores the importance of balance in Mughal dining. You learn that chutneys served not only as flavor enhancers, but also had practical uses. Their acidity helped preserve the fruit in the hot climate, while their medicinal properties, like aiding digestion and stimulating appetite, were well appreciated. The pickles, or acar, offer an intriguing contrast, with varieties made from mango, lime, and even wild vegetables, each fermented and spiced with regional variations that hint at the vastness of the empire's reach. Intriguingly, historians still debate how much of these condiments recipes were innovations introduced by the Mughals themselves versus adaptations of older Indian culinary traditions. This blending of influences is a hallmark of Mughal cuisine, reflecting a cultural fusion that extended beyond politics and into the very way food was prepared and enjoyed. Among the more charming tales you encounter is that some emperors insisted on personally sampling new batches of chutney, believing that their refined palates could discern subtle differences that might escape even the most experienced cooks. An amusing image of a ruler moonlighting as a condiment critic. As you taste these chutneys alongside the mango and breads, you notice how their vibrant flavors provide a lively counterpoint, awakening your taste buds and enhancing every bite. The use of ingredients like mustard seeds, fenugreek, and asafoetida, with distinct pungency and health benefits, illustrates how Mughal cooking combined taste with function, adhering to a philosophy that food should both delight and nourish. The lingering tang of these chutneys and pickles, as the meal winds down, leaves a pleasant, awakening sensation, much like a gentle breeze through a mango orchard at dawn. This nuanced interplay of flavors and textures reveals the Mughal breakfast, not just as a meal, but as a carefully choreographed sensory experience, where every element, however small, plays a vital role. The legacy of these sauces and condiments endures in South Asian kitchens today. Their recipes passed down and adapted, a testament to the enduring power of flavor to connect past and present. As the palace begins to stir with the preparations for the day ahead, you feel a quiet gratitude for the slow, immersive journey through this imperial breakfast, where even the smallest dollop of chutney carries centuries of history, culture, and care. As the morning begins to wane and the soft chatter of the palace stirs beyond the breakfast chambers, your thoughts turn toward the subtle rituals surrounding the conclusion of the Mughal morning meal, the quiet, graceful customs that mark the transition from nourishment to the bustling day ahead. Among these, the serving of fresh fruits beyond mangoes holds a special place, offering a gentle, natural sweetness to close the meal and cleanse the palate. Seasonal fruits like pomegranates, figs, and melons appear on intricately carved wooden trays, their vibrant colors and fresh scents adding a delicate final flourish. You watch as attendants present these fruits with practiced elegance, often accompanied by small bowls of honey or rosewater, enhancing the natural flavors with a hint of floral sweetness. The ritualistic nature of this service speaks volumes about the Mughal approach to food as an experience of refinement and respect. Final act of hospitality and care toward the emperor and his guests. Another subtle but significant custom involves the offering of mukwas, a mixture of aromatic seeds and spices such as fennel, coriander, and cardamom, sometimes sweetened with sugar crystals. These little mouth fresheners were believed to aid digestion and leave a pleasant, lingering fragrance on the breath, a thoughtful conclusion to the morning feast. Interestingly, mukwas also carried symbolic meanings in various parts of the empire, sometimes presented as tokens of good luck or hospitality in social gatherings, hinting at the layers of cultural significance embedded in everyday dining practices. Historians still debate how widespread these customs were outside the palace, and how they might have varied across the diverse regions and communities within the empire's vast territory. You overhear a gentle story shared by one of the palace attendants about an emperor who famously preferred to end his breakfasts with a handful of rose petals, believed to soothe the senses and promote calmness, a small but telling glimpse into how personal tastes shaped the rituals of the court. As you imagine yourself savoring these final fruits and aromatic bites, you feel the rhythm of the Mughal morning unfolding fully, from the first taste of mangoes to this delicate, fragrant conclusion. The sensory experience is complete, a slow unraveling of flavors and textures designed to nourish body and spirit alike, inviting you to carry the calm of this moment into the rest of your day. The gentle sweetness of the fruits, the cooling breath of mukwas, and the subtle floral notes of rosewater leave a soft impression, like a quiet melody lingering after a song ends. This final act of the breakfast ritual offers a peaceful bridge from rest to activity, an embodiment of the Mughal philosophy that every moment, even the most ordinary, holds the potential for grace and beauty. As the palace awakens fully around you, you feel a profound connection to this world of sensory delight and cultural richness, where food is a language of care, celebration, and tradition, an invitation to slow down, savor, and simply be. With the morning meal now concluded and the last crumbs and sips savored, you find yourself drawn into the quieter moments that follow the gentle settling of the palace. As servants cleared the breakfast spread and the empire's daily rhythm begins to unfold, these post-breakfast hours offer a glimpse into how the Mughals allowed time for digestion and reflection, valuing a slow transition from rest to the day's demands, a practice that resonates surprisingly well even in our modern, hurried lives. In the spacious courtyards, you notice courtiers reclining on plush cushions, sipping on cool water infused with mint or rose petals, their conversation low and unhurried, blending with the distant murmur of fountains and rustling leaves. This serene pause after breakfast was more than mere leisure. It was an essential part of the Mughal lifestyle, a recognition that nourishment extends beyond food to include moments of calm and mindfulness. You hear whispers about siesta-like traditions in the empire, where nobles, and even emperors, might take brief rest periods before engaging in state affairs. A custom historians still explore in terms of its frequency and cultural significance. This interlude offers a chance to digest not just food, but thoughts, an ancient ritual of slowing down that echoes in various cultures around the world. Meanwhile, the palace kitchens begin preparations for the next meal, their rhythms measured and precise. But for now, the echoes of the breakfast linger in the air, the subtle scent of mango, cardamom, and fresh bread mingling softly with the morning breeze. You realize that this slow, sensory unfolding from the first bite to the quiet aftermaths, the heart of the Mughal breakfast experience. It is a gentle invitation to savor not just the flavors, but the time itself. A lesson in patience and presence wrapped in the aroma of spices and history. As you breathe in the calm of the palace morning, your thoughts drift back to the mango orchards, the tea ceremonies, and the vibrant breads, all woven together into a tapestry of tradition that has endured through centuries. This journey through the breakfasts of the Mughal Empire has offered more than facts. It has been a passage into a world where food, culture, and daily life intersect in a slow, soothing dance. As you prepare to leave this world behind and return to your own evening, carry with you the gentle rhythm of these meals, the mindful pauses, the delicate flavors, and the quiet joy of simple pleasures shared across time. Now that the last morsel of history has settled gently on your mind, allow yourself to drift in the calm aftertaste of this Mughal morning. Imagine the soft shadows lengthening as the palace settles into the quiet lull before midday. The warm breeze carrying faint whispers of distant gardens and sun-dappled courtyards. The rich sweetness of mangoes, the soothing warmth of spiced teas, and the delicate dance of breads and chutneys blend into a gentle symphony, wrapping you in a cocoon of comfort and tradition. Let the slow rhythm of this breakfast ritual, with its balance of flavors and mindful pauses, soften the edges of your day. There is no rush here, no hurry, only the steady unfolding of time, like the petals of a flower opening to the sun. As you breathe out, feel the soothing cadence of centuries past settling into your own breath, a reminder that rest and nourishment are timeless gifts. Perhaps you notice the faint hum of a fan, or the soft rustle of sheets, gentle companions to this moment of ease. Let your thoughts float like clouds in a serene sky, untethered and calm. Soon, the quiet darkness of night will welcome you fully, and your dreams may carry the fragrant warmth of mango groves and distant palaces, a lullaby woven from history itself. So, before you drift completely, remember this peaceful journey through flavors and time, a slow, soothing story to carry you softly into sleep. End of script. Sweet dreams.